Hello. Welcome to Inside the Majors, the Sudspeed Blackout Q&A edition. This episode's taken from 2 live Discord sessions I held discussing the Majors December special event known as Sudspeed Blackout. This race will be, unsurprisingly given the name, a 12-hour team endurance race, with the unique feature being it will be run almost entirely in the dark through the night at the Nürburgring. And no, not the full Nordschleife circuit. That would be interesting, to say the least, given the inclusion of GTP and hypercar prototypes. It'll be around the Grand Prix circuit, with WEC classes of cars, GTP and GT3. This event comes off the back of the hugely successful and popular Majors 24, which has been held for a number of years and continues to grow, but will also serve as a test event for the 2025 Majors Endurance Championship, which we'll get into some discussions around through the sessions as well. The rules and regulations for the Blackout event, which is sponsored by sim racing glove manufacturer Sudspeed, so see more at sudspeed.com, that's SUDSPEED.com. Sim racing gloves by sim racers for sim racers. And the rules and regulations are on the Majors event page for review, and entries will open the first half of November ahead of the December 14 event, that's GMT. So present me will now throw to past me, who's going to share with you and also those who attended the sessions some information around the upcoming race. We've got a few people in the chat. Hopefully you've got some questions to ask. And we've also had a couple posted in the ITM questions Discord channel. The first question that we had through the week was regarding driver ranking restrictions for each class from Joe. For the Sudspeed Blackout, there won't be any restrictions. In terms of the classes and driver rankings and everything, it's going to be exactly the same way that we run the Majors 24. In that everything's going to be pre-qualifying based in terms of determining splits, and there won't be any divisions within the GTP or GT3 classes. For the MEC, which again will have very similar rule set to what we're using for Blackout, but obviously because it's a championship and there'll be series points, that will have a ranking classification with elite driver and sportsman classes. But we'll talk more about that in the future when we're getting a bit closer to the MEC launching. That's probably one of the few differences between the Sudspeed Blackout and the MEC events that will be happening in 2025. There won't be any driver rankings or sub-splits within the classes. And there was a similar question from Phil about any I-rating restrictions. Again, in both Sudspeed Blackout and the MEC, there won't be any I-rating restrictions. It's open for anybody. All levels of I-rating are welcome to enter into the events. Had some questions from Jason as well. Will there be a specific Discord for this endurance series? There won't be, but there will be some new sections within the Majors Discord created when we get a little bit closer to it, much in the same way that we do for the Majors 24, potentially a little bit different structure than what we've had in the past. But yes, it will be within the same Majors Discord that we've had. Now, this is quite a good one. Jason said it's in some of our brains to tow as soon as we get wrecked, especially if in the middle of the track. Will there be like one get out of jail free for the first time rather than a DQ? So this is in relation to the no tow rule, which is a little different to what a lot of people will have experienced in racing before, where if you have an incident that means that you cannot drive the car back to the pits, you are required to ask permission from race control to tow. This is, in a sense, is used to trigger safety cars. So whilst I can take your point, Jason, that, yes, a lot of people, particularly if you're in a vulnerable place, the first reaction is to tow out of the way. But that's just something that you're going to have to get out of your mind. Race control, if there is an incident where a car is in a vulnerable position, will probably verbally inform everybody. Hopefully, because this is a team series, everybody will have spotters and other people from their team watching what's going on. But race control will warn drivers where the incident is, particularly if there is a car that's sitting on the track and could be hit. The other thing is that drivers are just going to have to actually respect yellow flags. So, yeah, it's possible if you come across a yellow flag, there might be something there. Cars won't just be towing out of the way. But yeah, no, there won't be a get out of jail free card for towing if you do it without permission. Yeah, you will be removed and not allowed back onto the track. And the final one from Jason was, will IMSA or non-IMSA number plates be used? I hadn't actually considered that because I thought that a lot of the cars had already been changed so that there was just a single number board set for their liveries, but maybe that's not the case, and I've just made that up in my mind. But yeah, we'll be using non-IMSA, so the standard number plates for deliveries. Yeah, so that's dealing with dealt with the questions that people posted. There's still a few people that are here that haven't already been bored by me waffling on. Jared's got a question, so Jared, welcome.
Hey, awesome. Thank you. Thanks for putting this stuff on. Really appreciate all the work you guys are doing. Very excited for the series. In relation to the race control and the no tow rule, there is a race control channel similar to like Teams, all drivers. So we would have to communicate to race control through switching to that channel. Is that correct? Or is anyone else familiar with using a different channels to talk to race control rather than the whole field?
You will be able to use just the standard all teams or all drivers audio channel within iRacing. Race control will be monitoring all of the channels, so you won't have to change to a different channel. Obviously, if you're using the iRacing team channel to communicate to the rest of your team, you would need to come out of that channel to one of the, for want of a better term, global audio channels so that everybody could hear it. But yeah, so you don't. It doesn't have to be the specific race control channel. In fact, I think only admins have access to the race control channel, unless access is given to other people. I'm not 100% sure on that as far as transmitting over it. But yeah, so you'll be able to request that permission to tow on basically any of the channels that people can hear, because race control will be listening to all of them.
Perfect. That sounds great. Thank you.
No problem. It's interesting, the no tow rule. It's come from a number of leagues, particularly that I race in here in Australia, use it. And it's a really good way of determining when to throw safety cars. In the past, for Majors 24, when we've used, in a sense, a random number generator or a random mic generator, where he's just essentially picked a random number of safety cars to run and when they are to occur. It can both be a blessing and a curse to use actual incidents to trigger safety cars, particularly in events where if there's weather or on circuits that are particularly incident heavy. But it does actually bring in that more realistic element where safety cars are occurring in response to incidents and major incidents rather than just some sort of random generator. The other one that I've seen used in the past is an overall incident count to trigger a safety car. So there's a set number of incident points that once the field collectively reaches, that triggers a safety car. But yeah, again, those are arbitrary ways of coming up with it, whereas this is a more realistic representation of how a safety car would be triggered in the real world. Yeah, for those that haven't used it or experienced it before, hopefully it worked out okay. As is listed in the rules, if it does get a bit trigger happy in terms of we're just having incident after incident and people having to tow a lot, race control might put out a period of time which would be declared of a no tow amnesty, if you like, where they might say, look, for the next 40 minutes or for the next hour or the next 90 minutes, whatever it is, everyone is free to tow if there's another incident. We're not having a safety car because we've had 3 in the last 15 minutes and you guys just need to calm it down. So, yeah, to make sure that there's some actual racing goes on during the races. Yeah, that hopefully is a little bit of detail around the no tow rule for you.
Yeah, I was just double checking. So in some of the rules, if there is no live admin, it was talking about it, you will still have safety car and some sort of safety car procedure on a random lap count. Is that then true? Is that how I'm reading that correctly?
Yep, that's 100% true. I am hoping that we would be able to get, even if it's just volunteer basis, at least one admin into each split. Because of the no tow rule, reacting to an on track incident in real time, we have to have somebody in each server to be able to run that.
Right.
Protests and things like that, penalties and applications of that sort of thing, doesn't necessarily need somebody in in the specific race server, because obviously people can send their protests in. It can be reviewed by somebody that's outside the server, and then it's only when an actual penalty needs to be applied that somebody needs to go into a specific server.
Sure.
If we're doing safety cars based on a random lap count or whatever else, it's the same. But by having hopefully one person in there that would at least be able to react to somebody requesting to tow and initiate the safety car process, and even if they then made a central race control group aware that's occurring, and then other people went to help assist with the running of the safety car process from that point onwards. Yeah, I would hope that we would at least have somebody there to be able to have that initial reaction in all of the splits. But obviously, if that turned out not to be the case, we needed something in the rules to
Right.
be able to deal with that not being the case. Yeah, it is my hope that all the splits will be able to utilize it. Say we have a really good problem, which is the support for the race is huge and in somewhere in the realms of the majors 24, and there's just too many splits to cover, then we at least have a backup. Yeah, the intention is to try and have every split using the no tow rule.
Gotcha. And then I unfortunately haven't gotten through this completely, but under the safety car procedures stuff, there's a section for actual safety car versus the virtual safety car. Is that the difference between having a live admin in versus not? Those two different sections, or what would be
Uh,
the biggest distinction between those two?
the biggest distinction will be, do we have somebody that's actually available to drive a car, to be registered to the safety car in that split, to be able to drive it out of the pit lane and circulate it in front of the field. Again, that'll probably come down to how many volunteers have we got and how much person power we have to cover the administrative roles within all of the different splits. It doesn't actually change the safety car procedure a huge amount, just that there's a little bit more reliance on the lead cars to understand what the process is and to manage that from the front. But yeah, so again, it's just a case of, yeah, do we actually have one or more people available in that split to drive an actual car at the front of the field as the safety car?
Okay, perfect. I will make sure that I at least read through that because I think the no tow rule and just safety cars in general in officials, obviously, we don't really ever run into that in roads. It'll be a piece that I think for me it was going to be important to make sure I understand it in case
Yeah.
we're in a situation that we have to know what we're doing. So,
Yeah, and this is part of the reason why we wanted to get the rules out here 3 months before Sudspeed Blackout's occurring, and then we'll be putting the Majors Endurance Championship rules out similarly early so that we can have a bit of this peer review in terms of what it is that we've come up with, and also, yeah, so that people have time to read, take it in, understand it, ask questions. So, yeah, that's why we've released it now, because we know it is a little different. However, and I have not come up with this just out of the back of my head. It's been used and tested in other leagues that I and a few others have run in, and it does work. Yeah, but there's other elements in the rules as well for people to review and check it out. Yeah, that's why we
yeah,
put them out so early.
awesome. Absolutely. I actually do love the realism of it too, having watched some other IMSA stuff and seeing some safety car procedures go through, right? Like it's nice to see it be more realistic, which is one of the things I love about the series and what you guys are putting on. So really appreciate that. And thanks so
Yeah,
much.
and a lot of people initially see it and think, oh, this is going to be a safety car fest, but yeah, it. Hopefully, it goes the way that I've seen it in others, where it actually doesn't. And sometimes you actually end up getting races that have no safety cars at all because people just manage it a little better.
Sure. So
Where
then I guess a question I had in that, having not seen this in other leagues, and again, maybe it answered this and I'm being that person who didn't fully read all this beforehand, but with the no-tow rule, if you ask for permission and then race control gives you permission to tow, that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to trigger a yellow flag. It just means that they're going to review it to see if they need to throw a yellow flag, or how does that work?
it would almost certainly generate a safety car just because if that's the trigger, if that's what we're using, we don't want to have a or we don't then have secondary decisions around, do we then review an incident and see, was it because there was more than 2 cars involved, or is it based on where the car ends up and that sort of stuff? Which I know in the real world is the decision-making process that they would go through.
Right.
So, is the car in a dangerous place? Is it likely to be hit? Can it be recovered quickly?
Sure.
Those sorts of things. There's levels and upon levels of realism that we can introduce, but making it difficult for ourselves is not a priority or not what I'd like to do. Yeah, unless it's really close to a previous one and potentially like a single car incident, or an example that I can think of that I've seen before that didn't trigger one in a league that I used to run was where it was halfway around the lap coming back to green, and for whatever reason, a car had or a driver had some sort of technical problem with their rig, and they pulled over and
Cool.
said, "I need to tow," and so race control just said, "Yes, just tow straight away," and they didn't extend the yellow or anything like that. They just said, "Yeah, just do it," because wanted to get the race back going again. So the expectation should be if somebody needs to tow that it will trigger yellow. There will be certain circumstances where it won't, but the initial expectation should be that it will.
Yeah. And now again, like if you had an accident, but you can rejoin safely in the car, maybe you have a black flag, the meatball flag, and you need to come in, but you can still get the car around without causing too much problem. Is that don't request the tow, rejoin, get around, get into the pits, get yourself fixed? Is that
Yep,
going to be
absolutely.
okay, essentially?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And for anyone that watched the last World Endurance Championship round at Coda, that's exactly what one of the prototypes was doing. They were having some sort of hybrid drive issue or whatever else, and it was the number 12 car, the Jota car, and it spent about 8 or 9 minutes moving a little bit. The car would stop. They'd have to go through a power
Oh my
cycle. They'd
gosh. Okay.
get it back going again, go for 500 meters, 500 yards. The car would stop. They'd have to power recycle, whatever else. Again, so yeah, absolutely. Every time you think of something in the iRacing world that you think is wrong, invariably you then get an example from the real world of somebody doing exactly that. However, and back to your point, the incentive to drag it back is that if you do request a tow and a safety car is called, you will lose the race control will ensure that you lose a lap before you even tow. And
Okay.
that's just that rule came from there are certain circumstances on the longer tracks where with everybody going at a very slow speed that you can then tow and get a significant amount of repair done in a single lap and then potentially not lose a lap, which
Right.
obviously if you're towing, yeah, you really should be. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Perfect. That helped me clarify. Just because you get a meatball or just because you go off track doesn't necessarily mean you have to request a tow. It's meaning if you can get back on safely, get back to the pits, you're good to go. Don't just immediately request a tow.
Yep. Yeah. The incentives is there to try and get it back. That's right. Yeah. And
Perfect.
yeah, unless it's almost undrivable and you're just spinning and spinning, in which case, yeah, you probably should be requesting to tow.
Yeah. Perfect. Thank you.
Roger, welcome to Inside the Majors.
My question was this race in December, is it going to be part of the point series for the upcoming endurance league?
It won't. And part of the reason that we're doing this is essentially as a test event for the rule set, which we'll be using for the endurance series. But there will still be majors series or Sudspeed Blackout coins awarded to all the splits in the same way that they are for majors 24. So yeah, we wanted to just get the rule set or a similar rule set out there and have an event. And Mike's always been keen on doing a December endurance event anyway. So yeah, it won't be included in the series. If it's popular enough and people want to review that come season 2 of the endurance series, they're like, hey, the 12-hour was really cool. Let's get that into the series. Then that's something we can consider. But this year, no, it won't be. It'll just be a single standalone event operating its own right.
Okay, thank you. That's all I got.
No worries. Thank you for your question. Come on up, Chris.
Yeah, I was just saying, for those of us that have been living in a hole for the last 2 months and all of the new series and everything that have been being talked about, as far as what's the philosophy when it comes to the new endurance series and those things. I know that it's been talked about for a while, but I know that it's getting closer to fruition. I'm just curious on what the path's going to be and what lessons were learned in the past.
So I think the MEC, and I'll talk about the MEC and then I'll talk about Blackout afterwards. So the MEC was something that a lot of people had been asking for, both within the regulars or the majors series regulars, but also we were hearing it from the competitors that were coming along for the majors 24. For those that hopefully filled out the survey, a lot of questions for people that identified themselves as non-series regulars, so they just came along for the odd race here or there, or specifically the majors 24. One of the questions that was asked for them was what could be done to encourage you to come and do more racing with us. And by far and away, the biggest response to that was more team racing, saying, yep, we want more of this. We really enjoy Majors 24, put on some more events like that and we'll come and support it. That led to us wanting to do some more endurance racing, putting our heads together, the competition committee, we decided let's put something together and see what sort of support there is for it. And overwhelmingly, certainly the response that we've had so far suggests that yes, there is this support for having a properly run, live administrated, if that's a word, series that people can be a part of. Yeah, so that was I suppose, the catalyst for doing the series. And then, yeah, the Sudspeed Blackout, like I said, was earlier, is something Mike's wanted to run as an end of year endurance event for quite a while. And so we thought doing it as a test event for the endurance series was a good idea.
All right, I have another question if nobody else has one.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. So my question would be, is the endurance like that, this team racing series going to be major style where that encompasses like the major spirit where they're is a change of cars and an interesting mix of vehicles where one won't get comfortable with, oh, here we are in GT3, LMP, and GT4, where it's going to be like a mix of cars like Lotus 79, IR18, and IR01, that type of thing? Or what type of series are we looking at?
So the MEC is based on the World Endurance Championship. That is the intention for the series moving forward as well, is that, and I don't know if we've spoken about this publicly, but here's a little nugget, a little insight. The intention is for the MEC, one season will be based on the WEC. So when the calendar is released, you'll see a very strong link to the World Endurance Championship. And then the following season, it will be IMSA based. And so in those years, you'll see the calendar is very strongly linked to the IMSA calendar. That's for the MEC itself. For the Sudspeed Blackout, as it is this year, and for the end of year endurance event in future years, that's where we might have some flexibility or some changes in terms of what we use. This year, we wanted to use the same classes as what we're planning on using for the MEC because, like I said, we're using it as a test event for the series. But in future years, if there's support for some other classes of car, maybe mixing things up a little bit in terms of what classes will run against each other for the end of year event, that's where you might see, as you said, in the spirit of majors, some different things put out there. So whether we did Michelin Endurance Cup style one or the like Creventic series type things, yeah, we might look at doing something like that in the standalone events. But the series itself, I think, will always be, as I said, either WEC or IMSA focused. So yeah, GTP, GT3, and then varying calendars of circuits aligned with one of those two series. Jared has another question again. Go for it, Jared.
Yeah. So again, the differentiating between Blackout and MEC. So Blackout, we're using just the standard number plates, but given the different divisions within the same classes, the Unlimited and GTP, and then the drivers, and then drivers and sportsmen's in GT3, those have the differentiating decals of green for GTP and red for GTD Pro. Are we thinking that's the route to go, or are we not really expecting much overlap between the top GTP drivers and the ones with the silver and bronze, so to speak, drivers being in the same split?
Yeah, when it comes to the MEC, yes, there will definitely be different colored number boards and windscreen banners for the different divisions. And I actually think that there'll be quite a bit of mix in the splits between those divisions. But yes, there will be definitely markings on the cars which will denote which class the cars are from. I had hoped that we might be able to even run them as separate classes within the servers so that they would be shown with different colors in the relative boxes and standings as well. But I don't think that's possible. You can't have the same car classified in two different classes within a single server. So I'm not sure that's possible. But there'll definitely be series provided number boards and banners of different colors for all of the cars and the different divisions.
Perfect. And then another follow-up. I'm assuming results and everything in the Blackout will be used to help distinguish your division for the MEC.
Yeah, so it's not included in the rules that have been released at this point, but yes, the rules for how we're going to classify drivers have been crafted, and performance in Majors 24 and or Blackout will definitely be used when it comes to ranking a driver.
Awesome. Thank you.
Hey, you know that guy who just before the green flag keys up his mic and asks, "Anybody got a setup?" Well, this is him. This is Adam, and hey, Adam needs some help. On the other hand, this guy over here, this is Steve. Steve is a solid racer and he knows his way around the garage. Steve's problem is time. With a job and a family, he can't find enough time to build competitive setups and to race as often as he likes. But as luck would have it, Steve knows a secret. He lets the Majors Garage crew chiefs do the setup work so he can focus on the racing. At majorsgarage.com, Steve can get setups for over 60 cars on the iRacing service. So no matter what series he wants to jump into, he is covered. Anybody really should tell Adam. See you at the garage.
Yeah, this is the Inside the Majors podcast around the Sudspeed Blackout 12-hour special event, which will be happening at the end of the year. For anyone that's not familiar with Sudspeed, Sudspeed is a sim racing gloves manufacturer. Sim racing gloves by sim racers for sim racers. And they've come on as the major sponsor for the Sudspeed Blackout 12-hour event, which is great to have them on board. And for people that haven't listened to the podcast before, we have had the Sudspeed owners, directors, creators, if you like, on the podcast before, talking both about their product and iRacing in general. It was a good listen. So that's available on the archive on Substack. But today we're going to talk about the actual event itself. The rules have been released. They're on the schedule page on the Majors website. So have a look at that. There will be other opportunities, obviously, via text through the Discord to ask questions of the admin team. One that was posted by Brian in the Discord was around safety car drivers and needing volunteers and how that might work. In the past, for the Majors 24, at the time of registration, we put out a call for volunteers that might be able to help with things like driving of safety cars or doing live race control. And the payoff for that, or the recompensing for that, is normally the entry for their team is provided free of charge. Brian did also ask, is it okay for a driver or for somebody to be a driver and still volunteer? The answer for that is yes. Definitely, as a safety car driver, there's ways that we can get you registered into a server that's not the one that you're racing in. And obviously, there'll be a period of time where you would need to be available for safety car driving because we don't know when they're going to occur. So yeah, there would have to be a set time when you wouldn't be driving with your team. But yes, you can drive and still volunteer. Race control is the same. We would probably just not get you doing any incident reviews for your class in your split. So thanks for that question, Brian. Some other questions that have come up in general discussion around the event. One of the ones that I've been asked this week, especially given the tapping of the desk, waiting for the new McLaren to be actually released, is if we do get the new McLaren GT3, will it be available for the race? The answer to that is definitely yes. Any of or the most modern group of GT3 cars will be available for the GT3 class. We won't be doing any of the older models in addition to the new ones. But yes, if the new McLaren is released, it will be available to race. The old version is listed in the cars for the race at the moment, and it will remain if the new car is not released. Another question that we've had is around, will the race be broadcast? The answer to that is top split will definitely be broadcast. Splits 2 and beyond, which we're definitely anticipating that there'll be multiple splits. We're not 100% sure on that yet. We're not willing to commit to that at this point. It's possible we might have some sort of in-house broadcast of it, or with or without commentary, it's possible. But top split will definitely be professionally broadcast in its entirety by a well-known streaming service on YouTube. Yes, it will definitely be broadcast. How much does the race cost? The cost to enter the Sudspeed Blackout will be 20 iRacing credits. For anyone that's not familiar, it's exactly the same as for the Le Mans 24 or the Majors 24, call it the right thing, where you can purchase credits on the Majors website and then use that for entering one or more cars. You do not have to be a driver of a car to enter the car. For those that are teams that are looking to enter several cars, the best way of entering might be to buy one of the more economical packs of Majors credits and then have that person enter several teams using those credits, and other members of their team reimburse them so that a more economical way of doing the entry. Number of splits. Is there a maximum number of splits? No, there is not. Any car that does the pre-qualifying requirements will be given a split. I'm anticipating there'll be somewhere upwards of 100 cars, and our cars per split goal is 40 cars. Top split will be 20 GTP/hypercars and 20 GT3 cars. The further splits after that will be determined based on the best looking breakdown that we can come up with, given the number of entries that we have. Pre-qualifying sets the splits by taking into account the 2 fastest drivers of any car. Every driver must do a pre-qualifying attempt. However, only the 2 fastest will be used to determine which split a car is put into. However, pre-qualifying does not determine the grid. In each split, there will be a qualifying session, which will be a timed session and not individually run. So there will be multiple cars on track at the same time. But in any split that we can have live admins in there, the 30-minute session will be split 15 minutes for GTP and 15 minutes for GT3, just to try and stop having that mixed class problems of cars getting in the way of faster cars or slower cars. So that's the intention with that one. So there you go, Jared. You've seen quite an insight into how the podcast is actually put together. Forgive me for not knowing this, Jared, but are you a regular major series driver, or are you just an endurance guy?
I'm an endurance guy. I did the Majors 24 first time this last year. It was buddy and I, a couple of buddies and I did GTP. We all ran GTP for our very first time ever, and very first time at Lawns, honestly. We all jumped headlong into GTP World and Le Mans. We had a blast. Well, we were bottom split. We were 13th split, but it was a blast. We absolutely loved it. So when you guys started announcing the MAC, I got really excited because I love endurance racing.
What are the things that are attracting you to the MSC? I know obviously 13th split, the majors didn't have safety cars in it, but what are the sorts of elements of the MEC or the Sudspeed Blackout that that have been released that really get you excited about it?
I was super impressed with y'all's running of just the 24. I think you guys did a great job with that. I was highly impressed, even all the way down to split 13, right? I like more of the realism that you guys bring with it. I liked the qualifying based on times to create your splits, no tool rule, the cautions, just all of that. It just feels like it's a more of a virtual real world aspect. So I just like the realism of it. And I just like team endurance stuff. So I think it's fun to jump into those kinds of things. I like doing all the special events and that iRacing does, which are generally all longer stuff. And Buddy and I, we do the GT 3-hour endurance, done 2 full seasons of that now together. So I just like the longer endurance racing. I'm not the fastest guy, but we've gotten to the point now where we can generally keep the car on track and moving in the right direction and stay out of the pits for the most part.
MEC will have the divisions where driver ability will be restricted in some of the lower classes. So there will be, things for everybody to race for and championships for everyone to race for. It will be set apart from some of the, the really elite guys that will come along, and girls that will come and race.
Yeah, no, I like the idea of the division. Again, the realism, right? Like I haven't watched a lot of WEC. I've watched more IMSA stuff in the last year, which is predominantly just over a year on iRacing now. So I like the fact that you're going to be given like a driver rating, and then you have like your restrictions like pros and then the pro-am teams having that separate divisions within the classes. So it's cool.
Yeah, we want this to be a series that everyone feels like there's something to battle for. In the same way there is for the Majors 24. Everyone gets put in a split that should be roughly around your team's average ability, and it gives you a chance to be in the fight.
I think it'll be really interesting post even the Blackout to see what kind of uptick you get, right? You said you have such a high rate of people saying if you did this, they would join in. Like, I feel like on one of the podcasts that you and Mike were talking about, how you guys obviously wouldn't expect that number to translate 100% over to actual participation. But the fact that it was like, I don't know what, in the 80s or 90% of people saying they would do that, it'll be interesting to see what kind of turnout we actually end up with.
Yeah, so it was a little bit over 50% said they definitely would, but less than 15% said no, they wouldn't come, which when you're asking people 6 months before you're going to do something, would you come and do it, is a pretty staggering response rate. For more than half to just say outright, yes, we'll come and do it, before there's no calendar, there was no rules, there was no anything else like that, but they were just like, yep, we're in. Yeah, that was really great. I suppose it shows that people enjoy the Majors 24 as a product and as a race. Yeah. And so more of it, or having it more than once a year, is something that appeals. Whilst the 12-hour race is serving as a test event for the Majors Endurance Championship this year, I'm hopeful that it will get a bit of a life of its own. And so it'll be able to develop into a product of its own in the same way that Majors 24 as a standalone event is every year as well. So we'll see how it goes. I've already got some ideas, some of them a bit crazy, about what we could do year 2 with the 12-hour event, just to keep it fresh and keep it interesting for people. So watch this space for some of the craziness we might be able to get in the future. But
That'll be exciting. And remind me again, the actual MEC, it's a combination of several 4-hour races, 6, and is there an 8 or 6 the next longest?
So there'll be 5 rounds. It will start with a 6-hour event. Then there'll be 3 4-hour events, and the finale will be an 8-hour event.
Okay, yeah. Okay, I thought there was an 8-hour in there.
Yeah. So we'll be finishing with an 8-hour. Again, the similar to the Sudspeed 12. There will be between 2 and 4 drivers allowed per car. And there'll obviously be some other team management aspects across a season rather than just a single race, which we'll get into further down the track once it gets a bit closer to the actual MEC starting. But the season structure will be those 5 rounds. They will all occur before the Majors 24. So the final round will be in May, partly because we want it to be, in a sense, leading up to the Majors 24. With the Majors 24 is the biggest event that the Major Series put on every year. Obviously, we want this building towards it. So it will be packed into the first half of the year, and it will be WEC focused in terms of track selection, with the intention in 2020 that it would then be an IMSA based calendar in terms of track selection.
I thought that was a really cool idea to be able to flip flop those as far as following which series and schedule and like the type of tracks. So I think that was a really cool idea you guys came up. Again, I'm super excited for the MEC. So anything and everything that you guys are putting out, I love to try to keep up to date and follow along. And I appreciate that you guys are putting out all this information. Again, just one of those things to me that I personally appreciate. So any rough ETAs around when schedule and all that kind of stuff will be released, particularly maybe not even track, but like the dates, those kinds of things. Just curious on that.
So two things that I'll raise there. The first thing is we thought we had the dates nailed down. We've had to hold off on that for 2 reasons. One, because one of those dates is not going to be available now because of a clash with something that we don't want to clash with. And the second one is we just need to make sure we're trying to spend just a little bit more time anticipating when the iRacing special events will be, because we don't want to clash with those either. So those are the 2 things that have meant we've just paused on releasing the schedule because we thought we had it. And we think we've got a draft schedule at the moment, but we just need to clarify a few things around that. The second thing that I wanted to say, and this is particularly for people that do have set schedules or real life things that they have to deal with, the start times for all of the MEC races will vary. They will always begin at some point on the Saturday of the weekend GMT, but it will vary when on the Saturday GMT that they will start. And that's so that if somebody does have a regular, whether it's a job or family commitment or whatever it is, you won't miss all of the events because of it, because the start times will chop and change. So sometimes it's going to be starting in your daytime, sometimes it'll be evening, sometimes it might be the middle of the night. So all of the time zones, in a sense, will get a fair crack at it, and there will be that variability there. So yeah, that's something that people should be aware of. And again, that's in the MEC rules as well. So we're hoping that means that even if people can't do all 5, some people will, some people won't, but you'll at least be able to do some. So if you've got a core group of people for a team, you should be able to cover, because you really only need 2 drivers for the 4-hour races for sure. You might want a third for the 6 and the 8-hour races, but yes, you should be able to cover with 2 drivers the 4-hour races. So if you've got a group of 3, 4, maybe even 5 people that you want to call on during the series, you should be able to cover the whole series. Yeah.
Perfect.
Jared, certainly thank you for your attendance twice.
Of course.
And your enthusiasm. Yes, hopefully there's a lot more people out there with the enthusiasm for the race that you've got, because that'll make it a really cool and successful event. So, yeah, thank you for your time today.
Yeah, of course. Happy to show up because it's been a pleasure just chatting with you.
And you also, and thanks on behalf of everyone listening to the podcast for breaking up my monologues as well. So that's about a wrap from the 2 Q&A sessions about the Sudspeed Blackout 12-hour. Please check out more details on the schedule page of the Major site, and we're really looking forward to welcoming as many of you as possible to this special event in December, and onwards to the MEC in 2025, which we touched on a few times today here as well. Next up for Majors series is the Formula Ford Festival, which is super exciting for many reasons, but not least of which will be because it will be the first ever Majors series event featuring rain. I can't wait for that one, and I hope to talk to you all again next time on Inside the Majors.